And the first thing we're going to talk about are some rookies. So obviously we've had our draft, and which rookies are going to be fantasy relevant. Now, we all know that it's been said, it's been beat over the head with us, but this was supposed to be a poor draft. So, and even traditionally in fantasy, the rookies don't usually light the world on fire, or there may be one or two that come in. I remember, I think it was Karl Anthony Towns came in first year, smashed it. He was, I think,
20
he was
and
a top
10 a night. I drafted him and I loved
yeah.
it.
Yeah, you did. Props there. Props there. I tried to pull the same thing with Zion last year. Did not work. So, but in general, usually there's only a few or a handful that are actually able to stay on our teams. But I think we're going to break it down into two lists. I can think of 4 rookies that probably should be drafted in a standard 12-team draft. That's to say that, they're top 160 players. But then we're going to give you a list of some rookies to keep on your watch list that maybe you don't draft them, but you put that little star next to their name and just see how they go and watch them during the preseason and see how their minutes roll out. So I'll name the first one. I'll throw it over to you, Cal. So in my opinion, and you can debate me on this, but I think LaMelo Ball, after this first year, will be the highest ranked rookie. And I think he should be the first rookie off the board. What are your thoughts there?
I think he's in a great situation. So I agree with you on the point that yes, he's going to be handed the ball. It's kind of weird what he's going to play either with, if it's going to be Devontae Graham, or if it's going to be Terry Rozier, but he's still going to put up big kind of minutes played, and that's what you really need in fantasy. I can see him putting up a lot of turnovers, so that's something to consider for that category. I know some people like to punt that, especially someone on the pod today, Mitch, and that's your specialty.
Yep. Gotta love me some punt turnover builds.
So I can see you obviously forecasting him as the number 1 fantasy player. And look, I mean, look, he's being compared to, Karis LeVert or D'Angelo Russell. He'll put up some assists. He's athletic. He'll be a highlight reel kind of player. He's a good player to have in your, you want some of those fantasy players that you obviously look at the highlights every game. He's one of those players. He's like,
he'll be fun to watch.
Stats. Yeah, exactly. He's a fun player, and you want a couple of those in your fantasy team. Like, I mean, me personally, I like to have a bit of it just helps you keep track of the NBA kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
look, I'll read out his stats here at the Australian League. He put up 17 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal and a half. He nearly hit 2 threes a game, but on poor percentages at 25%. His free throw percentage was at 72%, which is better than his brother. And obviously 2.5 turnovers, but I expect that to be a lot higher in the NBA. Like you said, I think the biggest draw card is we expect him to be given the keys right away. Now, whether it's at the expense of Devontae Graham or Terry Rozier, I personally think Devontae Graham will come off the bench. But either way, I expect him, and he should start, if not from day one, very early in the season. Look, his percentages are going to be rough. But, you've got to take that into account. I would compare him more to his brother, like Alonzo Ball. Potentially he might score more, but hit fewer threes, and his free throw percentage might be a little bit better. But the same kind of build. He's got a lower block rate as well. So Lonzo, nearly averages a block as a guard. So LaMelo hasn't yet shown that in his short career, but he has the length and potential to do so. But look, I'm not saying that he should be a top 50 player. I think he should be drafted close to like that 90 to 100 range is my personal opinion. But of this group, it's probably close between him and Wiseman. But I reckon he should be number 1. Do you think who would you want to draft first, him or Wiseman? Obviously, completely different players, but in a vacuum.
He probably will be my number 1. I'd have to go with LaMelo just because the upside's probably a bit better. With Wiseman, I don't know how he's going to get minutes, I guess, as well. But his role obviously won't be anywhere close to Bulls. And if you cater your team to LaMelo, for example, I think probably the best fit for him would be a punt field goal. If you get a punt field goal for LaMelo, he's got to be a good fit. He'll turn over the ball a bit often.
Yeah. Punt field goal, punt turnovers. Yeah, he's going to thrive in that kind of build.
Like he should get pretty reasonable points, assists, and rebounds, and then a reasonable amount of threes and a reasonable amount of steals is what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's move on to James Wiseman, who we have mentioned. I think it'd be close, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he is the top-ranked rookie out of this group. I just wouldn't draft him ahead of LaMelo Ball in a vacuum, like I said. If I was looking for a big man stats, obviously I'm going to go for Wiseman. The sample size we have on him is obviously very small. He played 3 college games, and in 23 minutes, he's blocked 3 shots a game, which is crazy. Averaged 20 points, 10 rebounds. Like, these are monster numbers. 77% from the field, 70% from the line. So, look, if you extrapolate that out to like 30 minutes a game, that's just a monster. But
small sample size,
number one. And number two, maybe he doesn't get as many minutes as someone like a LaMelo Ball. He's playing for the Golden State Warriors, or a championship team, or maybe before Clay went down, they were a championship level team. Maybe Clay going down, makes them pursue that youth movement a little bit more. But someone you can definitely pick up around that 9 to 100 mark again, who should get a ton of blocks, should get you a few rebounds, and good field goal percentage.
Yeah. In terms of rankings, he's definitely a safer bet than LaMelo, because I think LaMelo, as I said, his ceiling's higher. In fantasy, it depends what you want to do. If you want to shoot for the fences on some of those later picks, usually that's what I'd probably prefer to do. But I think he's a safer bet with the fact that he should get some blocks. He should get a reasonable amount of minutes. Even if it's just 25 minutes a game, he should still produce reasonable rebounds and blocks. And doesn't hurt your free throw too much either. So
he probably has less negatives than LaMelo, and probably has, like, if he does manage to block 2 shots a game, like, that's a big boom in his value. So that would lead his ranking to increase, but whether or not he's as valuable to your team will depend on your build. So I see those 2 players being very close, and both going around that 90 level in drafts. So yeah, I think clearly those should be the first 2 drafted from the rookie pile. I want to talk about my guy here next, who I've got at number 3, and you may disagree with this, but Killian Hayes, I think, should be drafted in fantasy drafts this year. Now, I do want to keep an eye on the rotation there. They have some guards. Obviously, Derrick Rose is still there. They've recently traded for Delon Wright. But and look, we just bagged on the Pistons before. They are far from a well-run organization, or they haven't shown that this offseason. So maybe they don't give him the keys early on, but they should be giving him the keys. They want to be bad. I think Killian Hayes is going to get lots of opportunity this season. And I think he can make some noise in fantasy leagues this year.
I think he can too, just because I assume he's going to be the starter. And it's going to be a great combination to see, obviously, Killian Hayes run with 4 other centers on the court. I'm expecting to see it. Given their roster, and hopefully he can pop up some dimes. The one knock to him in terms of his advanced kind of stats is his turnover rate is a bit high, so that's something to keep an eye on. I assume he'd be one of those guys in a head-to-head league who on the odd night might get like 8 turnovers and 5 turnovers kind of regularly, but he's still going to
let's just get this out of the way. All rookies turn the ball over. Like, it's just it's part of the territory. If you're drafting a rookie, you're expecting high turnovers, and you're probably expecting poor field goal percentage, unless you're doing someone like a center like James Wiseman. I think that just comes with the territory when you draft rookies.
I'd agree to that, especially if he's a point guard. It's just part of learning the league. So as long as just take that in consideration, he might hurt you a bit there, but he's definitely got a pretty good upside. I like watching him too, in terms of he's cool to watch, the lefty, so the Frenchman.
Yeah.
So go Killian Hayes. Where would you want to pick him if you were this hypothetical? What kind of range would you go for?
Now, look, this is where I would want to see how that rotation is at this moment when things are still a bit cloudy. I would want to take him with one of my last 1 or 2 picks, so probably close to that 140, 150 range. I would hope that he would slide there. If I can see a clear sign that he's going to be the starter from like day 1 or early days, then he would be moving close to that 100 range to me. But right now, I'm not too sure. Maybe they want Derrick Rose to have a bit more minutes. Maybe they want Delon Wright starting. But I think definitely by the end of the season, they'll move away from Rose and away from Wright, and he'll get more keys to the offense. I'll just run through his stats from overseas real quick. Averaged close to 13 points, 6 assists, a steal and a half, 2.5 rebounds is a bit low there. One of the big knocks of him is his 3-point shooting, averaging 27% from 3-point. But he takes enough threes that you'll still get the volume there. You'll still get probably at least a 3 or 3.5 a game. And he's long, so I expect those rebounds to come up given the minutes. Although with the 100 centers they've got in that team, maybe not.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. So, points, steals, good free throw percentage, shoots over 90% from the free throw line, which is elite, and good assists there. So just what you want from a good point guard, and just the minutes. So the upside will be there. So someone just take a flyer on at the end of the draft.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I know who that's going to be in our draft as well.
Well, maybe not to listen to this podcast. I know the boys are listening. The last one who I think should be drafted, although I don't know if I will draft him, but he probably will go ahead of Killian Hayes, and that's Anthony Edwards, the number 1 pick in the draft this year. I know, the number 1 pick. Why is he last on this list, or at least on the ones you should draft? Well, the reason is in fantasy, you need to contribute in multiple categories, and Anthony Edwards is only a scorer, and he only it's points, and that's it. And on a team that has Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, they've also just signed Ricky Rubio. They've got Malik Beasley. Those points, they'll be there, but it's reminiscent of like a Colin Sexton or an Andrew Wiggins, but probably even worse in my opinion. The percentages are not great. Sub 80% in free throws, right at 40% from the field, and just doesn't really do much else. So that's why I'm a little down on him. And I personally don't know if I would draft him in the top 160.
Yeah, I think you were spot on with the comparison. He could be, in terms of fantasy, he could be a bit of an Andrew Wiggins comparison, which I'm sure all the Timberwolves fans are really happy to hear.
Yeah.
Kind of like points, but that's about it. Like points with not super efficient, so that doesn't really help you there either. And then doesn't really get a whole lot of assists or doesn't get a lot of threes and things like that. So the counting stats aren't really there. He's really just there. His potential really is points. And even on a team with Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, it's kind of like, is he I don't think he's going to be the third option because they just gave Malik Beasley a huge contract. So it's a bit of a question mark there too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the fourth option, could be third option. But I feel like his fantasy output won't be super impressive. I agree with you.
Yeah, look, I think he'll probably be a better real life player than a fantasy player. But yeah, just those multiple. Yeah, he'll be exciting. And look, the reason you would take him at the end of the draft is just the sheer upside of his talent and ability. Apparently he's grown. Apparently he's now 6'6", is what I've heard. I'll have to check that. The NBA is all over the place with their height sometimes. So I'll have to see what he looks like on the court. But yeah, look, you take a flyer on him if there's no one really left at the very end of your draft. Sure, have a stab, but I'm not expecting great things from him, at least this first season, and we'll just sort of see how he goes. But yeah, so I think those are the 4 players who I would want to draft in the league. We'll move on to a couple of guys that I think you should maybe not draft, but keep an eye on and put in your watch list. And the first name might surprise you. He's one of the guys that I was really impressed with the Thunder for trading up and actually drafting. I think he fits perfect on that team, and that is Alexsej Pokusevski. He's an international player from Serbia, and I just want to show you these stats, Callum, on a per 36 minutes.
Hit me up.
Per 36 minutes. So he, in the league, he only played 21 minutes, but per 36, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals, and 2.5 threes. This guy, like on a per 36 basis, this guy puts up stats. He's the weirdest build of a player. He's 7 foot tall, weighs only 200 pounds, and he's got a 7'3" wingspan, and he played guard in Greece. A really strange statistical spectrum.
Guard.
Yeah, he's
12 rebounds.
Yeah, well, he's 7 foot tall. I mean, he's still 7 foot tall, but he's weak as piss. But on the Thunder, who don't really have any other goals except for tanking, developing youth, I could see at some point this season him having a fantasy impact and putting up some weird stats. So some combination of assists and blocks and steals, shoots a decent free throw percentage. It could be nothing. He could be terrible. He could be too weak to play in the NBA this year because he is very, very thin. But on the off chance that he does blossom into a good player, it could be a steal.
Yeah. The one thing for him will just be minutes played. You just got to, as you said, put him in your watch list. It could be a year too early, but there's no harm in putting him on your watch list because those per 36 are pretty good. But as you said, he only really averaged 21 minutes a game, and that wasn't in the NBA. So
No, it wasn't in the NBA. So yeah, you're right. That minutes played will be the key stat there. So someone I'm definitely interested in watching. And had he been on any other team, I probably wouldn't even bothered. But because he's on the Thunder, there's enough scope to think that by the end of the season, they're just full tank and just go on, full trust the process sort of thing, and giving all their young guys any minutes they can handle.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is another sort of, I guess, opportunity-based pick, and that's Deni Avdija. And I know you weren't a huge fan from him in the last pod, but given the opportunity he has in front of him on a Washington team that doesn't really have many good wings, what do you think of his opportunity this year?
Look, I've made it clear that I'm not a big fan of Deni. In terms of the fantasy upside, if he gets minutes, he could get a reasonable amount maybe of assists and I don't know, he could get the odd 3 and rebounds, a bit of points, but I don't know. It really does depend on the minutes. I don't think he's really quite ready for the NBA yet. And that being said, his 3 throws is really kind of what could hurt you. So that's also something to be in mind. If you got a punt 3 throw team, then there's no harm in taking him.
I don't expect it to be on a high volume, so it may not hurt that much like a Lonzo Ball kind of thing. His free throws are poor, but he doesn't shoot nearly any at all, basically. So, but yeah, someone who's, again, sort of like Pokusevski, got a weird statistical distribution, like lots of rebounds, maybe some assists and threes, but not much scoring. Not many sort of blocks or anything like that. So we'll see. I sort of want to fly through these next guys. This next guy we'll talk about is Obi Toppin, someone to keep on your watch list. Again, most of these things are going to come down to opportunity. In a Knicks rotation that does have a couple of big forwards, lots of forwards on their team, does he play a bit at the 3? Do they prioritize getting him in, getting a lot of minutes? I'm not sure. They seem pretty keen on him. I mean, there were rumors here they were supposed to trade up to pick 5 to get him. So if they really want him that bad, you'd think they might play him.
You never know with the Knicks, though. I will say, I'm going to shock the world right now and say add him to your draft board as a late round pick, guys.
Ooh,
I like Obi.
Okay.
I like Obi. Obi's good. I reckon he's going to get minutes. Yes, it's with the Knicks, but we know that if Tibbs, he's usually got his core group. I think Obi will be in that core. He usually only goes, 8 or 9 deep, really. And I see the upside there for Obi. It could be, it's only going to be points and rebounds, but his field goal could be good too. Big points, rebounds, field goal. I mean, this kid is the player of the year. So, and yeah, like I said, a few the odd 3 here and there. I think he'll be, he can be valuable. I would draft him as a late round pick personally.
Okay, right now, like without any more news, you draft him.
I'm taking him. Put a flyer on Obi.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, at this point of the draft, like you can just do those sort of things and just test it out. Personally, I think there are better options. I would rather draft someone who I think will be there, like a Killian Hayes. But like I can definitely see the appeal. I just don't know, because of the fact that he doesn't offer many steals, assists, blocks. The upside is limited. I heard you compare him to someone like a Aaron Gordon, which I think is spot on. I think he's exactly like an Aaron Gordon, and even Aaron Gordon in his 5th, 6th year, he's not lighting the fantasy world on fire. So we could see it happening. I think if your draft is later, so right before the start of the season, and you see in training camp that they're going to play Obi Toppin a lot, definitely take a fly there. But or if you're just really keen like Cal, maybe you can give it a go. All right, I'm going to shoot out these next 3 guards just to keep an eye on. So the 3 I've got here are Tyrese Halliburton, Cole Anthony, and Kira Lewis Jr. So 3 guards with a bit of opportunity. Kira Lewis Jr. is probably a bit of a long shot, but he's playing on a team that has a lot of fantasy production in years gone past with their pace, and his statistics convert really well to fantasy. But just guys that may, in their first year, get a bit of opportunity, especially if their lead guard goes down. So say we get injury to De'Aaron Fox, or perhaps even Tyrese plays along Fox with Bogdanovic leaving. So you could see him getting some solid minutes there.
Yeah. I'll say just in terms of fantasy stats, what they put up in college for Cole Anthony and Kira Lewis were pretty similar. They're both putting up about your 18, 5, and 5. So I guess you're hoping that these guys get the same amount of opportunity and can then put that, into some good fantasy basketball. Tyrese Halliburton didn't produce as much on the points, but he put up a good amount of rebounds and assists. So he was kind of like a 15, 6 and 6 kind of player.
Yeah.
So, and with the Kings, I can see his kind of like opportunity and his minutes play kind of rise, maybe even from the get-go. Like it's still a young team. So he definitely is someone I'd have on my watch list for sure.
Yeah, I definitely put him on your watch list and see how it plays out. Like I said, I can definitely see him playing with Fox. And all these guys don't have the strongest competition in front of them. So someone like Markelle Fultz for Orlando could easily sort of, we could see him out of the rotation, or his shoulders playing up again and Cole Anthony gets some opportunity there. So, or even, someone like Eric Bledsoe is prone to some injuries, getting a bit older now. You could see taking a bit of time off, and then Kira Lewis getting a bit of opportunity there. All right, well, we might move on from there, and that's all for our fantasy rookies.